Good evening. I call the City Council public hearing, May 20th, 2025 to order. You please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Councilor Wachee, lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. Madam Clerk, roll call.
Sure. Councillor Credo.
Present.
Councillor Dujafroy.
Present.
Councillor Horn.
Present.
Councillor Fitzpatrick.
Here.
Councillor Fontenot.
Present.
Councillor Herman.
Present.
Councillor Carolian.
Present.
Councillor Richardson.
Present.
Councillor Sullivan.
Present.
Councillor Turner.
Present.
Councillor Walker.
Present.
Deputy Mayor Hammond.
Present.
And Mayor Callahan.
Present, we have a quorum. Resolution approving the fiscal year 2025-2026 operating budget for the city of Rochester. This is the public hearing, so if you want to talk about specifically the operating budget for the city of Rochester, not the school, please come up and state your name and address.
Good evening, Christopher Rice, 159 10 Rod Road. Just to put it into perspective, this is what we see when we print out the budget. I went through every single page. Had a wonderful conversation with Councillor Sullivan the other night after last week's budget meeting, and I asked him what his overall intention was. And it struck home to me. You know, he was fighting for the veterans. And you know, we had a great conversation. And I talked about how we need to bring that veterans tax exemption up. And how we do that is, well, we tighten the belt. We tighten the belt drastically here in this city. I can understand the administration's perspective on not increasing it 100%, but an increase is still an increase. And $100 goes a long way for a lot of our veterans in our community. A lot of our veterans that are facing potential homelessness because they can't make ends meet. But that $100 could mean them staying inside their home. Another personal thought I had overall the budget was the lack of just general discussion about the O&M budget, the meat and the potatoes, the oomph that makes the city go. CIP, we'll get to that, because I got some questions about that too. But the issues and options and the O&M budget, that's really what makes this city tick. A lot of people ask me, Chris, why do we have such a high unassigned fund balance? Why is our fund balance just ridiculous? Every year we keep adding to it and it keeps growing. Well, like I said before to this body, you guys like your fluff. The city administration likes their fluff. I'm a jelly kind of guy, but we're going to go through several line items here that I think could be significantly reduced. Page 36, there's $4,000 that can be cut. Page 40, there's over $120,000 that can be cut from those line items. Page 49, $32,500. 65, $18,000. 72, another $10,000. 79, $10,000. 81, another $5,000. The list goes on and on and on, I found, with these cuts. Lines that are not being spent to at least 50% back in 2024. 50%. You guys should be having these conversations. This line really, when I found this line out today, it's on page 96. I almost had a heart attack, and I'm only 35. $350,000 could be cut out of this line. In 2024, the city spent $662,000. And I spoke about it 12 months ago to this body. Trash services. I told you guys that you guys need to clean up some of the trash here in City Hall. That statement still rings true today. $600,000 can be cut out of this line. And I get it's for the dumpsters out back, but do we need those dumpsters picked up every single week? Do we need the big dumpsters that we have? I watch the fire department wheel out the trash bins to the road once a week. They put them out. Do they use the dumpsters? Are they being accounted for in all this? What about our trash services that goes around and picks up trash downtown? I get that that trash needs to go somewhere, but we could get a little creative. And I thought about this, since you guys like creating new plans or approving new plans, you guys don't even really create them. What if we went and took that money and bought trash bags at Market Basket? So that way it's a revenue piece. We hired somebody to go around, and every night, city staff, they put their trash out, and a person goes around, bags it all up in these trash bags, and we take it down to Waste Management ourselves. That would save some money, wouldn't it? There are some other things that we could do. Wastewater treatment facility has how many employees down there? Do they need a full-size dumpster emptied once a week? Or could we go to a biweekly or even a monthly schedule with them? I don't know. Why? Because there's no bid documents online for trash pickup services. Are we even getting the best bang for our buck with this line item from Waste Management? I assume it's Waste Management. What about Wind Waste or Casella or Shipyard Waste or any of the other number of waste collection services that service this community? Page 125 has about $200,000 that could be cut out of those line items. But no one's having the conversation. A couple questions that I have in regards to the fire department specifically, and they touched on it briefly in the discussions. They're asking for an increase of $48,500 for fire department overtime training in regards to emergency management. And I guess the conversation centers around that's how much we get as far as a grant, which I'm fine with. But on the previous page, we see an increase of $133,000 in the overtime line. Just something to ask, you know. These are people's livelihoods, you know, taking almost, $7 million from the unassigned fund balance to fund the budget. Well, let's sharpen our pencils. Let's sit down, roll up our sleeves, sharpen our pencils. Let's find the $7 million in the budget. I found $1 million in a half an hour. I literally sat down at 4:30 this afternoon, sat for a half an hour, wrote up this huge list, came here, and that was $1 million. Just think what 13 people could do in 2 hours, finding $7 million. Let's just think about that. You know, city has grown, I can acknowledge that, but the amount of staff positions that have grown along with it, it's not proportional. It's not. We need to be very careful about how we operate this budget moving forward, or else we're going to see a lot of foreclosures, we're going to see a lot of tax deeds, we're going to see a lot of residents leaving this community, those residents that are the ones that built this community. Just my 2 cents on it. Take it with a grain of salt, I guess.
Thank you.
You don't need to thank me.
Susan Rice, 10 Rod Road. Tend to be a procedure person, where my son is I don't like fluff, I like jelly person. I'm a little disappointed with the city administration, city staff, and the city council. I had to request the May 6th minutes and the May 9th minutes, and I got the runaround. Finally got the May 6th minutes on Friday, well after the 5 business days. Today, on Friday, that's when I got them. And I got a separate email stating that the May 9th minutes basically weren't available because, quote unquote, they still need to be reviewed. And I had a promise that they would be gotten to me by the close of business on Friday. Well, to put it frank, a little pissed off because they were emailed to me this afternoon and I didn't get them until about 3:45 when I went to check my emails again. You want to talk about transparency and what you all ran on and used that word? How are the residents supposed to go through all of this and follow what all of you are doing when we can't even get our hands on the written content? I don't want to sit and be glued to my iPad to watch your Friday workshop, retreat, or whatever it is that you call it. It's not fair. It's not fair to all of us. And I think that something needs to be done. And Katie, you need to be looking at what your employees are doing. Thank you. Oh, Mr. Mayor, you could tell me thank you. I'd accept it.
Good evening. Tom Kaczynski, Whitehall Road, and state rep from District 5, who represents them in a conservative and liberty-minded way when I can. I'm a little mixed up. You know, looking at this agenda, you got the hearings here, but yet it seems like later in the evening you have further discussions on the budget. So I don't know. I guess I would have thought maybe it was a complete budget and then we'd have a hearing on it so you could see all the aspects. You know, but I could hope that, you know, maybe there'll be some vast improvements later in the evening. You know, you might think that this is an election year and come November, October or so, everybody here is going to be telling their constituents, possible voters, how conservative they are. And so you still have the opportunity to really please those people. You know, you could actually lower taxes, you know, hit that slush fund, that undesignated fund balance that's really robbed people from previous years because it is taxpayer money. Somebody might say it's not, but that's where it came from. Give the taxpayers back $1,000 a piece. I mean, you got people here in this city with mobile homes that are getting killed with the assessments. You know, have some mercy on them. You might realize that even though it's always said Rochester's growing, it's growing like crazy. When you look at the census figures, it really comes to about 2,000 people over 10 years. That is not a huge amount. It's really minor. And yet, as was said before, there's a lot of positions being added out of proportion with the actual growth. And, you know, you got to figure in, it's not just, you just hire a person. It's not like the private sector. The benefits are much, much greater here. So that should be thought of. Would each position you add, do you really need it? I mean, the private sector in many cases is reducing jobs. You might wonder why, when you add so much spending and technology in Rochester, something that's supposed to reduce jobs, and you got to say, well, how's that working out here? Are we reducing jobs as a result of more technology? You might want to think about grants and money that comes from other areas of government, such as the federal government with $37 trillion in debt. And it's really, now it's coming to fruition. The bond rating went down for the United States within the past week. There are many in the government, they're trying to shrink it somewhat, but they're gonna have to do it a lot. They're gonna have to cut back a lot of spending. Maybe that could happen here. Maybe that should happen. You should mirror them. Or the state government that's finding out that things are tightening up, revenues are tightening up, and you gotta cut your spending back. Maybe you could eliminate some jobs. I wouldn't have a problem if you eliminated our so-called economic development. Maybe enough's been done in Rochester. It's kind of an amateur realty organization. And I got to say, I came here to that hearing on Care Pharmacy. Every person came up to this podium, opposed that spending. And yet, you totally didn't even listen to them and voted for that. And it really came to mind a couple days ago as I'm bouncing down Whitehall Road with my truck, or the pothole I hit by the Ben Franklin building that's like a crater. I haven't encountered one in New York City that big, and other roads around, and I'm saying, why, in God's name, are you buying property here when you have infrastructure that needs work, and you're going to be fighting over how much money we could spend on the paving program or for sewer pipes or water pipes? And you get involved with real estate so we could line up a developer and give them a price that's less than what we paid. Maybe you ought to think about the legal department that rarely wins a case here. Go back to the system we had previously with hiring an outside firm. And if they do a poor job, the privatized private firm, you could just fire them without incurring any legacy costs. This has turned into a very expensive department in the city. But every year, just about every year I get up here and I ask to reduce the spending and cut back, and basically it's been fruitless so far. But I guess I'm kind of stubborn, so I can only hope. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'll close the public hearing on the operating budget and move on to the resolution authorizing and approving the fiscal year 25-26 capital budget for the city of Rochester and authorizing borrowing in connection therewith.
Christopher Rice, I still live on 10 Rod Road. This is the CIP budget, printed it off. I didn't want to wait for city staff to get me a copy 7 days from now when I needed it 7 days ago, but that's neither here nor there. We're going to go through some of these. Lot of fluff. Page 7, the Kachiko pedestrian bridge. They're asking for 1.1 million bonded this year and another 1.5 next year for a total of 2.6. We've lived a couple hundred years without it. I think we can live one more. 10 Rod Road Industrial Park sign, $30,000. This is what I assume to be cash from the fund balance. Are we going to ask the businesses up on 10 Rod Road if they'd be willing to contribute a monthly stipend to have their name listed on our property? I don't know. Just a thought I had. Page 12, annual software upgrades for the IT department. Is this a reoccurring cost? If so, I believe that this should be incorporated into the budget itself. They're talking about data integrations and centralizing our data model for reporting reasons. I don't know, 50,000, it's cash. Maybe that'll buy one of those fancy trucks one of these departments wants. IT security on page 13, another reoccurring cost, or what I believe is a reoccurring cost of 50,000. There's another pickup truck. Network upgrade and expansion. Now this one really got me. $1 million over the next 5 years. And it seems like this is just status quo. Hey, we'll give you 400,000 this year, and then we're going to ask for, 150,000 thereafter, to expand the network of the city of Rochester. Now, this was very interesting because, going through the budget, this department and the welfare department were the two departments that actually gave the most honest O&M budget and honest CIP budget. And I have to give them kudos. Todd Marsh and Kelly Walters do amazing things for this city, and you guys don't give them enough credit. But the city clerk's office relocation, they're asking for another 100,000. Last year when we moved them, because we like to move departments to make residents mad in this community, because I guarantee you we won't hear the end of it on the Facebook groups or, at the coffee houses for the next 5 years that the city clerk has moved, even though the city puts out a press release like every other week about it. Who budgeted last year's move relocation services and failed to include 100,000? Councillor Herman brought this up, and I applaud him. The skate park, I don't know if it actually passed, I forget, but I'm a no on that. It takes away from small business, and I'm a pro-small business kind of guy. So if it's still in the budget, well, there's 35,000. We don't need a skate park. What I will say, I had an interesting conversation with a former city councilor about this exact issue. We have a great model down in the welfare department that could be really replicated throughout the rec and arena and other departments. We could build a public-private partnership with the skate park right over on Allen Street, and I would be inclined to, if I was still up there, propose we put $35,000 into the Rec and Arena O&M budget. And the reason why I say that, per year, we then say, hey, little Johnny, you want to play at the skate park, but you might not have the funds to pay, which I think it's only like $5 or $10 per session to go over there. But we strike a public-private partnership through the rec department and Red Alert Skate Shop. And we say, hey, if little Johnny comes in with this red card, save it, and at the end of the month, we'll cut you a check. Might be a worthwhile thought to have a conversation. Instead of spending $35,000 on a feasibility study that would net, okay, we need to have it, which would net another $2.2 million in bonding authority to build the skate park. And that's not even including any future maintenance or projections of growth or expansion or anything like that. So thank you, Councillor Herman, for bringing that forward. City Hall campus office ADA compliance, $100,000. This is probably just because the city clerk moved out and they need to renovate that office. They're just masking it under ADA compliance. $100,000 bonding authority. That'd be a no for me. Roof replacement. I called my friend, he's a roofer right here in town, and I asked him, I did some rough estimates. Google Maps is wonderful. I did some rough estimates. I got the square footage. He said that he could do this roof, dumpster and all, material to put the roof on, everything that's talked about in this lackluster proposal for about $125,000 to $150,000. Who's vetting these? $200,000 to replace a roof? Like, come on. Vote that one down and send it back to DPW and say, do your homework. Floor plan scanning. It's almost as wonderful as going to the doctor and telling them, you know, hey, I bleed blue, and they say yes. Pool chair lifts, I have to give it to the rec department. You know, there's not much written on this request, but, you know, they came with facts and figures, and I really appreciate that when they come forward and say, these units cost $16,500 each, and I can do the math out and see what they're asking for in the proposal. That's good on them. Thank you. Wish more departments would learn to do that. Body cameras, police department chief, great summary, thank you. I fully support that. What I don't fully support is this $200,000 cash weapons replacement program. Doing some simple math, 70-some officers, that's $2,900 per officer, and that's if every officer gets their own rifle, shotgun, and pistol, and holsters, magazines, and the startup ammo, okay? That's $2,900 per officer is what that boils down to. Again, could use some facts and figures. How much do the pistols cost? How much do the shotguns cost? The rifles? How many each are we buying? And I get there might be some extras, you know, if one goes down. I get that. You guys had awesome conversation on this. BZLS, new inspector, $38,000. Well, I say no. Give them a retired PD cruiser and $10,000 for maintenance. I used to work at a shop here in town that used to service all those cars. Tell you what, 100,000 is the new, 200,000 is the new 100,000 on a lot of these cars, especially the Ford Broncos that we've been buying that are out back, that planning and zoning use right now. You'll get 150, 200,000 miles out of those cars. The cruisers, yes, they do take a beating, but the shop in town, it's kind of a disgrace, actually, when you think about it, that you guys are saying, well, 100,000 miles and the maintenance budget goes up. It's basically saying, slap in the face to Dave's Tri-City Towing across the street that he doesn't maintain the city's cars, but collects a paycheck. I know that that man works hard to protect these cars and saves you guys a lot of money. $100,000 for a transition plan for the America with Disabilities Act. This is another fluff piece. Thankfully, they're not asking for any money in outer years yet. But $100,000 cash, that can go. EPA MS4 stormwater permit, we've been fighting this for years and we're gonna continue to fight this. Maybe the mayor and all his connections can call the White House and see if they can ease up on some of the restrictions. He likes toting his connections. Pavement rehabilitation program, $1 million. I've always been an advocate of increasing that. Short story on that, new DPW facility was being built many years ago in my ward, and a lot of my constituents were mad. I had a frank conversation with the commissioner and the mayor at the time and the city manager at the time, and they were assured us, city councilors, and it's actually on video, I pulled it up, that there was money left over in the budget to pave Chestnut Hill Road from the interchange all the way up to Little Falls Bridge Road. How many of you counselors up there wear dentures? I guarantee you they would fall out on the ride up there. Please let me install a GoPro into your car when you take that drive. Rochester Neck Road Bridge, $2.75 million bonded. I guess if it needs to be replaced, but I would also recommend to the Public Safety Committee to review whether or not we need to put up a weight limit sign on that bridge and prevent Waste Management from allowing their 18-wheelers and trash trucks to cross over it. If we're gonna pony up almost $3 million without overruns, maybe we should put some limitations on it. $200,000 for the roundabout, or excuse me, the parking lot reconstruction over at Union Street. I mean, I led the charge when I was on the council to buy the dilapidated building that was in that parking lot that opened up the gateway to this project. I still stand by my decisions on that, but I asked the question, is this going to be enough? We saw it with the roundabout just up the street. We needed more money. $30,000, we can zip right out. Aerial imagery program. Feel like this comes back every year, and every year it gets approved. And why do we need pictures every year from an airplane of what our community looks like? I think we could push this off for a year, maybe do it next year, and then, you know, every other year after. We don't need to do 2 years and then take a year off. The $200,000 bridge widening down on Columbus Ave. I mean, this project's not even coming up till FY29, which is, what, 3 years away from now? The conversation won't be had for 3 years, and then the construction will be thereafter, and they're asking for $200,000. I think we could push that off a year, and that'd save some money. Was that cash? Nope, that was bond. We like to bond in this city. Maybe that's another way around the tax cap. DPW vehicle replacement. I suggest we cut the 2 new trucks, $97,000 and $34,000. Every year we keep buying new trucks for DPW. They got a nice new garage. They can keep them clean. Rec and Arena, another plow truck. We just purchased one. I actually voted against it because I felt that it was a DPW function, not a Rec and Arena function. But they already have one. They're asking for another. I wouldn't be in support of that. The arena chiller. The only question I have about this is, what are our plans to increase the efficiency of programming that's happening at the arena and get more kids involved in ice skating and events? You know, we pull the ice out of there. I remember a few years ago, the rec department had a wonderful idea of like beer in the barn or something like that, and they were going to bring in local craft brews and food trucks and make a day or a weekend out of it. That's what I'm talking about. Increase the programming there. Recreation again for the community center, the senior citizens dojo room thingy. When are we going to start looking at charging for these programs, at least a small amount of money? I don't know if we do now. That way these programs don't have to be completely funded by the taxpayer. School department equipment enhancement, bonding, $900,000 for equipment. Like, that's almost as good as what Councilor Walker thinks we should do with bonding motor vehicles. $3 million for track resurfacing, fencing, football fields. I'm all for the sports. I'm all for Spalding High School, but the fence has gotten by for this many years. There's no real narrative in here. I think we can do away with it. $270,000 for a 12-passenger van, a box truck or rack body truck, and some construction equipment. I guess the school's getting in construction now. Maybe they can finish the school on time and under budget. But I think we could cut that right out, especially since it's bonded, and they can work out a nice little relationship with Peter Norris over at the DPW facility if they need their equipment needs handled. Tufts Pond Dam, the water department. The inspection they quoted was from September of 22. It's coming up on 3 years old. We don't know if there's any more repairs that need to be made to that reservoir. I assume it's a dam of some sort that needs to be fixed. I'd ask a few more questions on this, especially where it's 1.2 bonded. A lot of bonding. Water program, replace some trucks, over 100,000 cash. That's a no. Office renovation. Oh, we love our office renovations. $65,000. Someone must be getting a payday. Maybe we're hiring somebody's electrician to come in and do the work. That's $65,000 that can go. The other question I have is, with all these bonds to the water and sewer department, what is the user rate going to look like for our water and sewer customers? We saw a significant hike this year. We're about to see a significant hike next year. No one's asking these questions. You guys are just sitting up there, going along, status quo, everything's good, we have money, let's spend it. A lot of you guys ran on the platform of cutting, fiscal management, conservative resource values. But here we are. Just spend, spend, spend. But our veterans are getting evicted because we can't give them a $100 increase on their tax credit. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on the city CIP? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to the resolution approving the fiscal year 25-26 operating budget for the City of Rochester School District. Anybody want to come up and speak to that?
I will. No, go ahead. I've spoken enough. No,
Go right ahead.
No, ma'am,
I'd
you-
be more than happy to
no,
hear you.
please. I'll go after you. That's fine. I've spoken enough.
Hi, good evening. My name is Shannon Vitus, Portland Street. I'd like to preface, I do have a statement, but I'd also like to say that I am a lifelong resident of Rochester. I went through our public school system. My kids are now attending public school. Very invested in our students, in our kids, and what will happen to our kids when they leave Spalding High School. So that being said, I'm a very proud member of the Rochester School Department. I want you to know that outright. But more importantly, I'm a deeply invested resident of this community. I want to begin by acknowledging the difficult task you all have before you. Balancing a city budget is no small feat, and I don't envy the weight of the choices you're being asked to make. I think we can all agree there are no easy answers. But I'm here tonight to respectfully and strongly urge you to pass the school district budget as presented to you last Tuesday evening. Over the last 5 years, the district has consistently proven itself to be fiscally responsible by keeping their budget within the city tax cap. I suspect that this is done through careful planning, tough decisions, and a deep respect for the taxpayers of Rochester. Keeping the budget within the confines of the city tax cap is no small accomplishment. In today's climate, especially when the district is facing rapidly rising costs in special education and working to meet the complex social emotional needs of their students and families, needs that have only grown more complex in recent years. At the same time, they're looking ahead. They're trying to plan for a new sports complex because they know that student success isn't just about classrooms and test scores. It's also about community, engagement, and giving kids a reason to show up and be proud of where they came from. I'm asking for support for a budget that is reasonable, responsible, and rooted in the best interest of Rochester students, and by extension, the future of our city. Thank you for your continued commitment to making Rochester a place where families want to live, work, and send their kids to school. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Christopher Rice, still live on 10 Rod Road. School department is facing some serious challenges right now. I think we all can agree to that, what we've heard in the media. This budget may or may not have been crafted under the current superintendent before she was placed on leave or crafted after. I don't know the specifics. But in the event that she might come back to our schools and she accepts that position, I don't know what's going on, but we need to be very careful about trimming their budget and hindering her plan of future progress over at Spalding and all the schools. We're going to be launching a new school. There are costs involved that we do not know where they're going to be. We don't know what the energy cost of that new school is going to be its first year, maybe its first 5 years, because there's a lot of kinks that get worked out in a new building. Maybe ask Peter Norse how his building is performing. Is it performing as projected when we built that? Or have there been serious changes to his thought process or financial reasoning after building that building? So as far as the school department's budget goes, the O&M budget, I've always fully supported public education. I've always fully supported Spalding education is getting better, and they're active, they're engaged, they get the students engaged. I see it every day. Don't squabble about $10,000 in the school department's budget. Squabble about the $10 million in the city's budget that needs to be cut.
Thank you.
Susan Rice, 10 Rod Road. I was here, I believe it was on May 6th, when the school presented their budget, and it was a little disheartening to think that we had hired a very capable person, the superintendent, to put together that budget, and then she's now on administrative leave and wasn't here to actually defend maybe her facts and figures and her thought process. And there was a person who came, I believe it was the assistant superintendent, who turned it over to another person to go through that budget. And it sounded like she was a fairly recent hire, and she did the best that she could. There was a very disheartening rumor that I came across within the community. And God, I hope that it's not true, that you, the city council, would like to have your fingers on the school department budget. So I'm here, as I stated before, I tend to be a procedure person, to remind you of RSA 194:1 and RSA 189. The Rochester School Board is a corporate and legal entity independent of the city government. Section 29, General Powers of the School Board. The policy-making body for the school department of the City of Rochester shall be, that's the key word, shall be, a school board of the City of Rochester consisting of 13 members, except for the City Council's exclusive right to determine and appropriate the total amount of money to be spent. You don't have the right, after you appropriate that money, to tell them line by line how they're going to spend it. Very much like the library. The administration of all fiscal and prudent affairs of the City of Rochester School District. The general management and control of its schools and properties and all powers prescribed by law shall be vested in the school board. The superintendent of schools shall serve as clerk of the school board. Conduct for elected and appointed officials does not apply in this case. The city charter and ordinance authority. The Rochester City Charter is the supreme local law, and I quote, "Members shall comply with the laws of the nation, the state of New Hampshire, and the city of Rochester in the performance of their public duties." And then it goes on further. There's kind of a hierarchy. You start with the RSAs, you start with the city charter, and then you start with this. Then you come down to the school board level, and it's also spelled out. And I won't go into a lot of detail about that, but there is their rights as the school board. And I just hope that you respect that, and you respect what this school board has presented, and that you support it, and that you keep your fingers off their money after you make the appropriation that you deem necessary. Thank you.
Anyone else to discuss the school CIP? Okay. Yeah, under operating. Anybody, we're done with the operating. Anybody here to discuss the school CIP budget? Okay. You close the public hearing and move on to the workshop. Call the meeting to order, and the second order of business actually is public input. And this is restricted to 5 minutes. And just come up and state your name.
Anybody else? Christopher Rice, 10 Rod Road, still haven't packed my stuff yet. So, in reviewing this budget and watching the meetings, I said this past couple years, your job as a city councilor is one thing as a constituent I require you to be at, and that is at every single budget meeting. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You being on vacation, you being at Walmart shopping, you being at your kid's soccer game. I'm sorry, little Johnny. I got elected to this position. It's my right, it's my duty. I need to be here. There'll be another soccer game next week. I'm sorry. But that is your job as an elected official, is to fight for us people. Not fight for the administration, not fight for the departments, but fight for us. You're our representative. Going through this budget, I found the ambulance to be most concerning, and Councillor Walker can attest to my blatant comments that I will make about the ambulance service and how much I think they're grossly overpaid. But we also have another service in town that actually pays in. As many of you know, I own my own towing service. I focus down in the Portsmouth area. But our towing contracts actually pay to be on the list here in Rochester. And then they get a phone call from the police department, hey, come out and pick up this wrecked car or this DWI or this arrest that we have. But we want your money, so you're gonna pay us to have this contract. But the ambulance gets $1 million from the city of Rochester and gets to keep all the insurance revenue. Just the other night, I had to call on a family member, an ambulance. It took them 17 minutes from the time I made the phone call to them showing up and knocking on my door. 17 minutes. And then we asked to be transported to Wentworth Douglas. Do you know how much attitude I got from the ambulance driver? Because we wanted to go to Wentworth Douglas. Third thing that happened, okay, was they pulled out of our driveway and they turned right and then turned left onto 4 Rod Road and then turned left onto Sampson Road to add miles to the billable that they would send my insurance to our insurance company. Instead of just taking a left down 10 Rod Road, getting on the highway and going straight down to Wentworth Douglas, exit 9 off of the Spalding Turnpike. They added about 7 extra miles, which equates to about $1,000 increase in the bill if you didn't know. Now, if we weren't an insurance payer, right? We were a self-payer. Who can afford an extra $1,000? I want to ask the 13 members of this city council, if you have an extra $1,000 in your pocket right now that you can fork up and give me. Because that was uncalled for, absolutely uncalled for. But the city thinks that it's a great idea that we give $1 million to a multi-state big corporation where I guarantee none of you have met the actual president and CEO of HCA America. Well, maybe the mayor, because he likes to tout his connections. But we have local businesses right here in Rochester. Dave's Tri-City Towing, Eddie B's Towing and Recovery, Rochester Truck, Doug's Towing, Real Mitchell Towing, Matt Scott's Auto, and they all pay you to have the privilege of being on your list. And then they have to share the calls. They only get 1 week out of every 6 weeks. I think we got our priorities a little backwards here. I thought we were a small business kind of community. The other comment that I'll make, this is my last comment of the evening, because I got to get back to work. The other day, I went to the county courthouse, and I watched the sentencing hearing. And I witnessed an individual who works at the sheriff's department be in the courtroom. It got me thinking, why doesn't the mayor have a mask on in a courtroom filled with 55, 60 people in it? But he can wear one while sitting up there on camera for all the people to see. Is he really sick? Is he? Why wasn't he wearing a mask at the courthouse? How about the picture from the Lilac Club Casino opening night that was posted all over social media with the mayor throwing dice down the craps table?
Point of order, Your Honor.
Have a good night.
Part of the rules of order, he's not supposed to disparage singular people.
Great, send me to an ethics board. I'd love it.
Anybody else?
Susan Rice, 10 Rod Road. Well, guess you all know what happened to me last week. And I just want to clarify, 17-minute wait. I knew when they exited my driveway that they were going the wrong way. Went down 4 Rod Road, took another turn on Sampson Road. The paramedic that was in the back did a wonderful job, had wonderful care. Glad for it. But she even questioned the driver. And some of you may or may not know, but my husband's a retired professional firefighter of 34 years out of Salem, New Hampshire. And he made the phone call over to the administrative office and said and noticed, you know, they had picked up on it and that they were going to correct the billing. And when we get those bills in, we will be taking a look at it. But mine was not a life-threatening issue. But if it had been, I think we need to be a little concerned because 17 minutes is an awful lot if you have that type of condition. But anyways, to be honest, I wasn't really planning on speaking tonight. But with everything else going on within the community, honestly, silence feels like complicity. Because this house, and I've said it once and I'll say it again, it doesn't belong to the mayor, and it doesn't belong to the council, the school board, and it certainly doesn't belong to our city attorney. It belongs to us, the people. And right now, the people are watching a city in disarray, and it is a mess. A superintendent is placed on administrative leave, and we now have 2 school board members facing ethics charges. That's not rumor, that is reality. Now, to be clear, I have deep respect, and I really do love this city. Not for the personalities and not for the politics. The city is defined under state law and the city charter, legal and civil structure meant to serve the public good. But let's not confuse loyalty to the city with blind loyalty to those temporarily in charge. We only go through this life once. It's temporary. The charter doesn't give any one person, elected or hired, the right to operate in a vacuum or manipulate. It certainly doesn't put them above accountability. That's why I raise concerns. That's why I ask questions, and that's why I keep showing up. I want to talk briefly about the role of legal counsel. The city attorney is not a bodyguard for bad decisions. Legal advice should clarify, not confuse. It should protect the public, not just the politically powerful. And when advice seems more focused on closing ranks than opening dialogue, that is a problem. And now, I know some folks say I appear angry. But let me be perfectly clear. This is not anger. This is civic engagement. I'm passionate about it. If I were angry, I would have walked away a long time ago. But I believe in Rochester, and I do love Rochester. and in the idea that public service means answering to the public. Public comment is a box to be checked off once a month under the workshop, and oh, I fulfilled the obligation under the city charter. It's a reminder that this house doesn't run on titles and legal tactics. It runs on trust. And until we see some effort to restore that trust, we all will keep showing up. Not to disrupt, but to remind you all once again that this is not your house, it is not my house, it's not the attorney's house, it's the people's house. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Tom Kaczynski again, of Whitehall Road and State Rep for District 5. In Concord, I'm kind of, well, even here, I'm kind of concerned with how taxpayer money gets spent. And my committee chairman up there will tell you, I can't find a rubber stamp in my pocket. I question a lot. And some of those questions saved a lot of money for the state. So one thing I have concern here, and you might say, oh, it's not too much money, it's just a little bit, but is Comic Book Day. So Comic Book Day started many years ago in Rochester, and the owner of a comic book store who would be the main beneficiary, ran this for many years. And I remember the article in Foster's Daily Democrat a few years ago, and he said, I'm losing too much money doing this. This does not pay, so I can't do it. Well, you would just say, well, that's that. It's been a nice run. But the response was that the city was taking over the responsibility of running Comic Book Day. So I'm like, this is kind of public-private partnership I'm not necessarily for. This is doesn't make sense. So now this past year, you really get mixed up. The owner of a local, I guess you'd say restaurant here, who's involved in the arts, seemed to project that he was running Comic Book Day. And I guess I got to ask, who really pays for this anyway? Because I see the city of Rochester, and I think it was another department in the city that was listed as sponsors. It's hard for me to believe that some other business is going to take over the responsibility of paying this so that the main beneficiary, the comic book store, is the one who's going to benefit the most out of this. So I guess I'm asking that. Your policy probably would be not to answer, so I guess maybe I could have a chat with my representatives on the council here from Ward 1. Maybe they could delve into this and just give an honest answer on this, because it really concerns me when you go over the line with things, even if it's a relatively small amount. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for public input? Okay, hearing none, we turn over the city manager's report.
Thank you, Your Honor. You have 3 items of online public input this evening. The first is from Jane Nelson, titled Public Safety Responds to Agenda Notes dated May 14th. The second is from Joshua Gagnon, titled Care Pharmacy Complex Purchase. And the third is from Tim Wells, titled School Department Money. I have 2 items for my report this evening for you. The first is that the New Hampshire Drinking Water Festival and Science Fair was held on May 8th at our water treatment facility, which brought in professionals, children, and parents from across the state to Rochester. It was a very successful event. Ian and his team did a fantastic job hosting, and we received very positive feedback. And we were also proud to see a Rochester student won first place in the science fair. So that was pretty cool. Many thanks go to Ian and our staff at Water, as well as city staff who assisted in the day's activities to help make it a success. And hopefully we will have the opportunity to host that again. The other item I have is that last week I attended some of the Primex Risk Management Summit and the Municipal Management Association of New Hampshire's annual conference. There were some great sessions focused on leadership and opportunities to learn about what others are focused on throughout the state. We are continuing to work with Primex as well on opportunities for professional development and have partnered with them to host a leadership training here in Rochester on May 9th. Actually, June 9th, I should say. All of our supervisors will be attending that date, and we'll be hosting other municipal leaders from the greater Seacoast area coming to the city. And the focus areas that day will be positive leadership equals a positive culture, administrative betrayal, perception is reality, and dealing with a multi-generational workforce. Many thanks to Deputy CEO Conley for working with Primex and our staff to facilitate this important event. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll just back up. That water festival was awesome. And there was the Rochester student from the magnet school that actually won the event. There were over 400 or 500 kids from the entire state that were there all day. Well run by the city. I was amazed, and I got to give out the award, so that was fun. Without any objection, Colin Cooper, who actually runs the Memorial Day Parade, asked to speak during public input. He stepped out. I saw him back in here. So no objection under the mayor's report. I'd like to have him come up and give a few minutes to explain the Memorial Day Parade to give us an update. Are you okay with that? Come on up to the podium.
Good evening, everybody. Carlton Cooper with the Rochester Veterans Council. You guys should have all gotten an email from me not too long ago requesting your presence to walk with the mayor and the chiefs in the parade coming up next Monday. So this coming Monday, the Rochester Veterans Council will host our annual Memorial Day Parade to honor and remember those who've died while serving in the U.S. military. Very important event. The parade will step off at Holy Rosary Church on North Main Street at 10:30 a.m. sharp, designated with a cannon shot, just to let everybody know in the town and county pretty much that we've started. The parade will make its way down to the Arch Bridge, where we do a naval wreath ceremony for a few minutes, a little pause there on the bridge. We have the taps being performed by Spalding High School Band and a rifle volley by the 18th Dover 2nd New Hampshire Regiment, our Revolutionary War reenactors, the same guys that do the cannon shot at the bridge. Once finished, that ceremony will continue down North Main Street, down to South Main, ending at the Rochester Commons for the Flags of Honor, not Field of Honor. They had to change name, which is a great event. If you haven't been there, I think most people have seen it for the past few years. 550 plus flags dedicated to a military service member or fallen member. Great event. We'll have ceremonies there as well. Lowering of the flag and the usual Memorial Day ceremonies. One great thing this year is we have 2 Grand Marshals for the parade. First Grand Marshal is Ed Parker, who is a World War II Army POW who just turned 100 in March. His roommate, Constantine, is 99 years old, turns 100 in August. Marine veteran. These 2 are roommates at Rochester Manor and are a hoot to be around, and the stories they tell are amazing. They're going to be our 2 Grand Marshals of the parade. We'll have Ed in the Army Jeep and Constantine in Woody's red and yellow Marine Jeep that I'm sure everyone's seen around town. So they are very happy to be in this event, and great to have them as our honored guests. We'd also like to invite all active duty military and any veterans, there's a few here in the crowd, to join us in the Walk in the Parade to remember the fallen. I've rented 2 6-person golf carts. We have a bunch of vintage military vehicles going to be in the parade. We also have Eastern Propane with their UTV that holds, I think, 6 people as well. So any of the less mobile veterans that can't necessarily walk the 1.3 miles, we have transportation for you. Whether you can jump into a old Willys Army Jeep or you can get into a golf cart, we'll figure something out. We also have a bunch of volunteers that will actually push anyone in a wheelchair if they want to go that way. So we're trying to make sure we include anybody that we can that's involved in this. One thing I like to make a point to is along the parade route, there'll be some road closures. The circle as well, things like that. The police are helping us out significantly every year. The fire department is going to have the flag over the circle, or the triangle, I should say, right here around the corner, which we didn't have last year due to the weather. And I also want to give a quick shout out to all our sponsors that have helped kind of with some of the costs that we've incurred. Between the golf carts, and there's going to be a bunch of giveaways. We give away flags to the kids at the parade and some other things. 1028 Towing and Recovery, Pip Rental, Lilac Car Wash, Evergreen RV, First City Cars and Trucks, Legion Riders, Norm Vetter Foundations, Holy Rosary Credit Union, Rochester Country Club, the Scenic Lounge, great new place, RWB Cleaning, Granite State Credit Union, Bartlett's on North Main Street, and the American Legion Post 7. Without this support, this may not happen, and each year I try to do something different and try to, get more people involved. So the more people that you talk to, whether it's veterans, active duty, even there's some young guys active duty, like, oh, I don't go in the parade. I'm like, no, you need to. We're honoring our fallen that have sacrificed their lives in service to this country. That is all.
Excellent. Thank you for, Carlton. If you don't remember, after COVID, we lost the parade. It was done by the Veterans Council. There were some issues with finding folks to organize it. I asked Carlton to step up, if he'd work with him to step up, and he's done an amazing job. And I want to thank all those vendors who have stepped up to help you make this. And I'm looking really forward to it, and I think that's wonderful. You found two vets at 198.
99, turns 100 in August.
And they're roommates in Rochester.
Roommates at the
It's
Manor, and
amazing.
it is very entertaining to listen to them.
So, the counselors or veterans, you're certainly welcome to march with us. It's Monday, May 26, 10:30. That's when we actually step off. But we're going to be there by 10, Carlton, or 10 o'clock by 10?
9:45, 10.
9:45, 10. And you're going to have that big bang, those Patriot guys again, going to shoot the muskets?
Band, we've got the Revolutionary War reenactors, ROTC, Spalding High School Band, a lot of the local clubs, La Club Victoire, Elks, VFW, everybody's all jumping in again. Yep.
That's wonderful. Thank you for
you.
stepping up. Appreciate it. Very good. All right, and what I'll talk about is last week, myself, city manager, Councilor Walker, Deputy Mayor Hammond was also invited to meet with a high school group. They just started this year called Bridge the Gap, and I'm glad the acting superintendent is here. She was here also. Absolutely amazing. It went on for about 2.5 hours. We broke up into groups, and they asked some fantastic questions. There were topics, some fantastic questions. I hope next year we'll get some of them to be able to come up during public input and give their useful vision of what they believe, where they believe the city is heading. I was really impressed, and I'm looking forward to next year when school's back in session to do a city chat with the mayor over there. So great work by the entire school department putting that together. It was great. Okay, so we're moving on to continue budget deliberations and adjustments. I will begin first here. I don't have my reading glasses, so bear with me. I'll send you an email. I have 4 adjustments I want to make. I got the form sealed out. And the first one is from the general fund, business office and finance, and it's our interest income. If you look at the trends over the last 3 years since we started that, we've beaten that by a lot of money. Right now, we're at about $2 million. So I'm asking to increase that by $250, which will bring up the revised budget to $1,250,000.
$250 or $250,000?
$250,000. Thank you for picking up the correction. The next one is out of tax collectors revenue. You find it in your O&M page 3. It's interest in delinquent taxes. Again, you look at the trend on that. We've beaten that over the last years by a significant amount. I'm asking to increase that interest by $50,000, and the revised budget amount would be $410,000. The next one is a decrease, and this is the tax seed process, and I'm asking that we decrease that budget by $25,000. If you look, again, in the history of the budget, you'll see that we don't come close to spending that amount of money, so we should be able to cut that $25,000. And my last one is an increase. We cut the police vehicle, and so I'm asking that we put that back in the budget at $38,000, and a revised budget amount of $320,000. So, my notes that I all sent you, that you've all been able to read. What I've done, the net surplus from above is $287,000. And that will include, if somebody wants to make motion to increase the veterans amount by $100. But before we do that, I need a motion on these four that I just made.
So moved.
Is there a second? Any discussion?
I just want to make one
Yeah.
correction if I can. I think it's 30, well,
38,
5. I think it's 38.5 that came out,
38.5?
wasn't it?
I thought it was 38 flat.
Is it 38 flat?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay? Thank you for the clarification. If there's no other discussion, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes carry. So now we're roughly 528,000 above the budget, and Mr. Sullivan, you have a motion?
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I'm very happy that I can do this. I'd like to motion to put the $165,000 in to raise the veterans credit from $300 to $400. I'm not sure exactly where that is in the,
No.
Second.
Director Sullivan, you okay? Do you need anything added to that motion?
No, the veterans credit adjustment is technically not in the O and M. It's outside in the tax cap calculation as a part of the DRA tax rate setting adjustment. So that motion that Councilor Sullivan made works for us.
It works, good.
Second.
Second,
I'll second it.
you second? Okay. Any discussion? Hearing those, all those vote in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes carry. Any other adjustments to the city budget? Counselor Walker.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to cut $400,000 from the bottom line of the operating budget of the school.
All right, anything, we'll just try to stay on the school budget first, I mean, the city budget first, then we'll go to the, is there any other cuts in the city budget? Hearing none, we'll go with the school, okay.
I just made the mo-
400,000, is there a second? Cut 400
Second for discussion.
Discussion. Any discussion on cutting 400,000 from the operating budget?
Yep.
Okay. Director Sullivan, anything you need from us before we vote on that? You okay, you got that? Okay, so the motion's been seconded, there's no discussion, a $400,000 cut to the school department operation budget. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Okay, let's take a roll call vote.
Okay. Counselor Fitzpatrick? No. Counselor Turner? No. Counselor Hammond?
No.
Counselor Richardson?
No.
Counselor Sullivan?
yes.
Counselor Fontenot?
Yes.
Counselor Carolian?
Yes.
Counselor Credo?
Yes.
Counselor Herman?
No.
Counselor Dijaffois?
No.
Counselor Walker?
Yes.
Counselor Horn?
Yes.
Mayor Callahan?
Yes.
Seven to six.
Motion passed?
Yes.
Motion
passed.
passed, 7-6. Counselor Walker.
Coming back to the city operating budget, I'd like to make a motion that we increase the paving line by $3 million worth of bonding.
Here a second?
Second.
I'd like to speak to that.
Go ahead, you want to discuss? Yeah, discussion.
As we all know, we get calls all the time about bad streets, and they never seem to reach the paving list. That's because of the CPI program that we use, keeps good streets good, and makes moderate streets into the good range, and it never reaches down into the bad street area because we have $1 million in the annual paving budget. So I'm recommending that we do, I made a motion to increase the $3 million bond to pump that so we can get some of these bad streets like Sullivan Farm Road repaved and get more of those bad streets up into the moderate range where the system will work.
My concern with that is I certainly support finding more money for paving infrastructure because it's needed. I think we all agree with that. The only problem with this, it's in the 11th hour, no offense. It's in the 11th hour, and you're talking about $3 million to our bonding. I'm going to make a motion in a few minutes here on another motion, but that's a lot of money. And obviously for paving, it's going to be a short bond. You can't be that long. We'll say it's 5 years long. That's going to be a pretty big effect to our operating budget. The principal interest that money will cause our operating budget it's going to be a significant handcuff on our budget. So my suggestion is that, and also finally, is a lot of these road projects that these companies do, they're already booked out for next year, okay? So best case scenario is we're able to squeeze them in. That's my thought process on it, is maybe to be squeezed in 1 or 2, but then we have all that interest hanging out another year. So my suggestion is that we can examine this. We'll have the finance director and city manager examine this and actually take a nice strategic look financially how to implement this process. And I'll just turn it over to the city manager to get your input on this.
Sure. Thank you, Your Honor. Yes, as you know, paving is currently plugged into CIP as a cash project. And as the mayor mentioned, the way our paving schedule works, this additional funding would not be going into effect until spring of 2026. So we do have some time to take a look at this. I would prefer to analyze it a little bit further because we'll need to look at the amount that's relative to kind of the impact council's looking to make, also with weighing our debt service and what that would look like for future interest, and also in relation to our plan with a cash program, if we want to continue with the $1 million or if we need to look at increasing cash in future years. So we'd be happy to talk about this at finance committee level, but there isn't necessarily a rush to finalize that tonight.
Question for city manager?
No, just another statement.
Go ahead. Well, actually, there's a couple other councils that, you already went, so we'll ask some other councils, then you get your second round. Go ahead. Councilor Fitzpatrick.
It should be said that just because this governing body authorizes the expenditure and the bonding authorization doesn't mean that the bonding is done immediately. Even if the project doesn't happen for a couple of years, that means that the money isn't borrowed until the appropriate time that the work is being done. So for the city council to make the authorization is just a policy statement that the city council wants to do X amount of money of paving via bonding. It doesn't mean that we're going to borrow the money and not do anything. We're not going to borrow it until we're going to need it.
I think my understanding of the motion was that, I'll let Councilor Walker, he wanted this done this year. Yes, he's nodding yes. That was the goal of it, which I don't think we can do. We'll go over here. Councilor Fontenot, then Councilor Sullivan, and then Councilor Carolian.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I, too, am definitely interested in boosting the paving budget. I don't know if Director Norse is here this evening to speak to Public Works direction on this, but I do know when they presented, he talked about the $1 million that was in the budget this year and said even if you're up to that to $2 million, it was still not enough to keep pace with the deterioration of the roads that are happening currently. So I think we need at least this boost in the arm to try to play catch up. You know, I look at it as maintenance, and I know around the house, if I let my roof fail, I'm going to pay a lot more money next year for the damages caused by not doing the maintenance this year. And I think that we're seeing that happen currently with our roads. It's probably the number one concern of immediate repairs that I hear from residents around the city. And, you know, and neighbors of mine, constituents, have come to the city and expressed their concerns as well. So I am interested. Obviously, I don't want to see any major effects. I've been concerned about our tax rate this year, trying to minimize any big increase in the rate. But I do feel that we need to make an immediate adjustment in our paving schedule to try to at least keep pace with the deterioration that's happening. And I guess I am curious to hear from Director Norse if that's possible, regarding whether we can, get some additional projects done this year and early next year, if we are allotted this money.
Yeah, I'll get to it. He jumped on that. That's why I didn't get to it. Go ahead, Director Norris.
I welcome that idea, Your Honor, of increasing the paving. I can't speak on the financial end, that's not my area of expertise. But I would recommend that perhaps at the Public Works level, there's a discussion about how those funds are used. It's very important, and there are options. Is it used to advance the PCI? Is it used to rebuild cul-de-sacs that we get a lot of complaints on that don't come up in the PCI? Do we use it on small roads like that? Do we use it on large roads that's used by more taxpayers? I think the expectations are, we have to know what the expectations are and decide how to use these funds best. Expectations, because I will tell you that the city probably needs about $20 million to rebuild the roads it needs to rebuild. So if it's 2, 3, 5, that's not enough. It would have to be a sustained effort. So we get our roads to good to fair so that the PCI is doing what it should be doing. The other thing is on the schedule, we are going to be working this calendar year, the summer and the fall, on the approved FY25 list. And my paver is telling me they can actually get the FY26 recommended roadways, which we just brought to Public Works last week, done this year. So that'll fill up the rest of this year. You're correct. We wouldn't be doing any new paving beyond that until 2026.
Thank you. I think Councilor Sullivan, then Councilor Carolyn.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. I think my thought was, I feel like what the city manager said, it's likely that DPW is going to come back and ask for another $1 million or try to get some other paving this year anyway. So I'm not, I guess I feel more comfortable knowing up front that we'd be bonding and preparing for it. I also think in the Public Works Committee conversations, as Director Norris just said, we don't get to the lower end of that PCI, and I feel that if you keep going to the next year and do it, you still, other roads move in that are going to be replaceable, and you just keep the low ones stay at the bottom. So I don't think it's a bad idea. I also think if that is true, that this is not a committal vote, that this is saying it can be done, the discussion could move further with DPW and the city manager, et cetera, and decide if that's what we want to do. I'm also assuming that Director Norris would come before the Public Works Committee or Finance asking for what he wants before it gets approved anyway. So I guess it seems like a low risk to me to approve it. It could still get turned down in Finance and never happen anyway. So.
Councilor Carolyn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm new at this, my first time as city councilor, so forgive me if I make any mistakes with this, but I just want to mention that earlier in the year, Councilor Herman and I gave a presentation on some of the road conditions that we face in Ward 3, specifically Church Street, which is a complete mess with manhole covers coming dislodged as vehicles are traveling down the road. And maybe I'm not understanding how the PCI or the algorithm works, but it feels like there's a triage process that's being happening with our roads. And the end result was I'm told there isn't enough money. So I understand maybe we can look for money. I think those were great recommendations, but I feel like we were already told that there wasn't any money to replace, and this is the main street of Gonick, New Hampshire, and the photos attest to its condition. So I'm not certain, where we would find any money. I think this is a good idea. Some of these roads need to be repaired, and they need to be repaired now, not after a study group or they need attention immediately.
Church Street is going to be done this year, calendar year.
I've just recently been made aware of that.
Okay.
But there's one road amongst many.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Director Sullivan, and then we'll move on.
I just wanted to comment that I think we need a little bit more analytic time, knowing that if you made a motion to adopt $3 million for bonding, after discussions with Director Norris and the Deputy Director of Administration, it seems like this calendar year's cycle and contracts are already filled. They're going to add a couple more streets. So that does give you the latitude of having some extra time to go through it more thoroughly. My concern is $3 million the right number? Could it be 4, 5, 6? We have to model those types of things because what we want to make sure is it's a program that actually catches you up, and we also have to run some models on the impact of the debt service, because what we can't have is, say, a $5 million bond amortized over 5 years and have a 1 million or 1.5 million cash component annually on top of that. That will put a lot of pressure on the tax cap, because that debt service will go into payment, and that'll be over $1 million a year. So I think it would be great if we could have some time to think about it, come back with a logical approach, and get the right number, because what we don't want to do is do an action tonight, come back in a couple of weeks or a month and say, oh no, we need another $3 million. And since it's bond, it would require a supplemental appropriation, and it would require a public hearing. Those are the things that you'd have to plan some lead time in, but I think we have that lead time. It's been a long time since we've done something like this. We've bonded for roads, I think it was 2006 or 7 or 8, long before my time.
2002, I did it.
2002, and Council Walker did it, so I don't know all the mechanics. The debt service was probably completely different back then. It'd be nice to have some extra time and then come back with a solid number.
Thank you. Councilor DeJarbois, then Councilor Hammond.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'll start by saying that I generally am very much in favor of increasing the amount of money we spend on our paving, but it sounds to me like there's a little bit more analysis that needs to be done. I don't think this is urgent and pressing for us to do this tonight, especially given that the paving that we're going to be doing is already committed out until the springtime. So I think we've got time to let that analysis take place. And also, just for everyone's benefit who's not on the Public Works Committee, PCI is the Pavement Condition Index, I believe, is that. And basically the idea behind this is that you get more bang for your buck repairing roads that are already in decent, fair condition compared to bringing up roads that are much worse condition. And that's kind of counterintuitive. It works when you have some baseline level of funding that allows you to gradually bring up some of those bad roads so they can stay above that threshold, right? We aren't doing that. We're far short of that, and I would love to see how we get there. And one thing that I brought up at the last Public Works Committee meeting was the idea that I would love to see an analysis that shows us under different scenarios, different levels of funding and different options, how do our maintenance costs over maybe a 30-year period compare to some investments now in bringing up the overall average condition of our roads. And I think we need to get that detailed analysis. I think it would paint a clear picture that we desperately need to spend more on our paving, but I do think I would like to get a little bit more analysis before we adopt this right now. And since it's a bonded, if we do a supplemental appropriation, I don't think it makes a significant difference whether we do that tonight or in a few months after we get that more thorough analysis, so we get a good understanding of what we really need to invest and what the financial implications would be.
Thank you. Councilor Hammond.
Yeah, I don't think there's anybody here that will argue that we need to find some money somewhere at some point in time. I will say this much, that none of the streets, regardless of whether we pass this tonight or in 6 months after we do a further analysis, Public Works Department is not going to pull a magic wand out of the sky and say, we're doing these roads. Anything that is going to be proposed is going to be vetted by the Public Works Department and then this council. So it's not going to be just any road that's going to be done. as a matter of rule, that the way we work is all of these roads will be vetted by the Public Works Committee and then this full council. So it's not going to be just something, it's not necessarily the squeaky wheel gets the oil. It's going to be where it's going to be needed and where this body is going to find that it's necessary. Other than that, I'll be on board, whether it be tonight or in 6 months. I know we have to do something because we've been behind the 8 ball. Public Works has been telling us this for a number of years now that, we fund 1 million. Well, we were funding 1 million 10 years ago. So our $1 million today is going probably, 250,000 did 10 years ago. So some way or other, we have to find a way to bring that budget line item up. And however we do it is fine, but be assured that it's going to be looked at by the Public Works Committee and then this full body.
All right, we'll go to round 2. Counselor Walker, then Counselor Fitzpatrick.
Well, I went to the finance office yesterday, and he said we could swing the $2 to $3 million bond, not a problem. I also went yesterday or today to Public Works. I didn't speak to Mr. Norris because he was working from home, but I did speak to the assistant director, and she said the vendor could handle that in the year and a half. So I know you didn't want to do this, Your Honor, and you want to delay it. And I'm smelling that you're making it be delayed. And I don't think we should, because we're going to go another year behind, and it's only going to get worse. And I think the $3 million and the $1 million we got in the budget now, we can sit down with Public Works Committee and the DPW and come up with a list of all the ones on the bottom that never see the light of day. And we bring those up into the light of day so now PCI can work. Right now, PCI doesn't look at cul-de-sacs and the bottom dwellers of condition. And I think we've been working that way for 10 years, and it's not working. We're always playing catch-up. So what I propose today is the $3 million on top of the $1 million. That'll get a large slug of the bottom streets into the light of day future for the PCI program to work properly. And I think that's the way we should go now.
Counselor Fitzpatrick.
I support this $3 million, or even if it takes another number, boost to the city's paving schedule. And if this comes to a vote tonight, I will vote for it. But also the discussion of this group, I am hearing that we want to delve into this a little bit deeper. So with that, I would make the motion to refer this motion to the Public Works Committee.
I second it. Okay. Discussion, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. So I guess I'll say that I think that it's a good idea. I think that Councilor Walker, I agree with it. I think I also agree with Councilor Fitzpatrick that I would like to see it happen in this budget, but I think we probably can wait a couple more weeks, meetings, if, Director Norris and Director Sullivan can do some sort of determination of what the appropriate amount is, what it can be done. I also think that the $3 million that's proposed, and I could be wrong, but I don't think there's any way to get to that under the tax cap rules in any one budget cycle without bonding it. So I just don't see there's any other way to do this in any meaningful amount that we're gonna catch up. So, it's not my idea. I think it's a really good idea. But I also don't see how we get there without bonding.
Okay. I'm going to respond to Councilor Walker. He can have his opinion, but you're smelling up the wrong. I totally support the roads. I like the idea of analyzing a little longer, and if it's $5 million or $7 million, let's do it. Not limited, and we don't know what that effect on $3 million bonding today is going to do to our budget over the next few years. So we're still in round two. Counselor Carolian.
I think Counselor Walker had his hand up before.
Yeah, I know, but everybody gets a chance to
Oh,
go
okay,
second.
thank you.
I do have to make a point of order.
Yes.
The debate should only be on the referral right now.
Right.
That's right.
So it's brand new.
Counselor Walker.
I don't think you should refer it. I think we can make the motion tonight, have them in place. We're not passing the budget tonight. We can pass the budget next week or in 2 weeks. Take the time before the next meeting to make whatever calculations you want to make. We are going to send this to Public Works anyway before we even start the bonding. We don't have to delay this and study it to death. And I think we should vote no on referral, because that's just going to delay the thing. Now you're outside the budget, and you have to do a supplemental. And I'd rather not.
Counselor Fontenot, you have a, and then Counselor Carolian. Go ahead.
Thank you. So, yeah, I'm not sure of the purpose of referring it to Public Works. I would not be opposed to giving the finance director and the city manager time or an opportunity to review how we're going to fund this, which I think needs to be done by bonding of some sort for sure. So whether we postpone this, my concern of getting it outside of this budget is that I would prefer to see some of this happen this year, if that's possible. But I don't want to be sitting here next May having this same discussion and thinking, okay, now we need to bond $6 million or double the amount, and we have lost that, you know, and we've had 3 more roads drop off the cycle. I really would like to see something happen to start the process.
Director Norris has a comment. Go
I
ahead.
just have to stress the expectations part of it. That's why I think a discussion at Public Works Committee, which isn't until June 15th or something like that, is really what we have to do, because I don't want expectations to be above what the reality is. I don't know how you want to use this money, and that's important. You can't expect me to come back here and have the solution for $3 or $5 million. It's not going to happen. If you expect no more concerns and all these roads rebuilt, like I said, $20 million, remember that. That's what it's going to take to rebuild the roads that need to be rebuilt in the city. So this is not going to fix that. This is a great step forward, and we can address other roads that otherwise we couldn't, but it is not the solution.
Counselor Carolian.
Thank you, Your Honor. I am in support of this. I think it's a small step that we can take towards coming up with the ultimate goal that the good works our Public Works Committee does. And I think 100% there needs to be oversight. I believe there should be discussions in due process, but I'm also familiar with paralysis through analysis. And sometimes priorities change, more important things come up. And I just would hate to see this just make it down the line of priorities when, I mean, there's, you know, we have taxpayers who drive on miserable roads every day. And unfortunately, through no real fault of anyone, the current system, at least it seems to me, that is not really in supportive of paving those Tier 3 and repairing the Tier 3 roads. And from what I understand, the money is the issue. Thank you.
Counselor Sullivan, toward
Thank you very much, Your Honors. My last one. So it's just a clarification on the motion and to what Director Norris just said. I mean, I agree that 3,000, which would be a total of million, should be a total of 4 million this year, if I'm understanding it correctly. Doesn't get us there, but it does sound like, you know, the DOT 10-year plan kind of thing, where if we can do this for, you know, every other year for a series of time, we can get there. So, but does the motion that Councilor Fitzpatrick is saying, is that, it's a refer, are you saying just to put it off for another month, let the the Public Works Committee talk about it at the June meeting, in hopes that we come back at the next council meeting after that and possibly can put a motion forward with a number?
Well, you can make a motion in your referral to charge a committee when they should report back. I did not make that that motion. I simply made the motion that it's referred to the Public Works Committee, and it is understood, generally speaking, that it would be on the Public Works Committee's next agenda, and that the Public Works Committee would be charged with bringing it back to the City Council at the time that the Public Works Committee finds it to be the best time. So it would be in the Public Works Committee's hands. Now, you can amend the motion that's on the floor and throw in a report back date. That's, that's perfectly in order, but I did not make that motion.
Thank you. Director Sullivan.
I just want to make one clarification comment. I did talk to Councilor Walker about the possibility of doing this bond, and technically it is possible. And what became further clear to me after any discussions I had with any councilors was the fact of the cycle and the contractual commitments already. And what I was told is that even if you give the bond now, do not expect it to be done in 2025. It will be done in spring of 2026. That's the information I have. And then that's what prompted me to bring the discussion to the city manager to say, if we're going to do this, we should do it correctly and have more analytics towards it, because we might be able to do $5 million. And what's the difference if you're not going to get it in the cycle until spring of 2026? Now, clearly, there's some conflict in that statement, which I think needs to be clarified by Director Norris. Whether he clarifies it tonight or next week, we can still have this as an item to settle before you adopt. And if it turns out the $3 million or $4 million or $5 million, whatever the number, can be accommodated in the 2025 cycle, well, then that will be important information to know. But as my understanding is, wouldn't be able to be accommodated anyway. So why not understand the larger scope of the process and what we're dealing with and do it better, not just try to get the expectation that you're going to get more money and more streets are going to get paved this cycle, which is from now until, I think, September or October. And the other thing is, once you appropriate the money, there'll be a lot of people wanting to talk to the councilors to get on the list, make sure that their street's on the list. So, I think you have to do it in a logical manner, so.
This follow-up, Director. Will you and the city manager be able to work on some type of financial plan as far as CIP versus cash, and work with Director North by the time it goes to the next Public Works meeting?
When is that meeting?
When's your next Public Works meeting? Fourth Thursday of the month?
Yeah, third Thursday of the month.
I need the month and the day.
I thought he said June 15th.
June 20th?
Yes.
Probably, yeah. Okay. But now it becomes a priority. But yeah, we can work through it. But we also have to get understanding of the cycle, and we also have to get understanding of this PCI. So Director Norris and his staff is going to have to spend some time with me explaining how it works.
Okay. Director Norris, you got a follow-up?
Well, what might actually be driving that is how much the city can do financially, because as they say, the $5 million, that's a great step, but it's not going to eliminate complaints. So we have to choose. We can use the PCI as guidance, or we can use it all the way, but I think the choices have to be made very carefully as to what you decide to do. Okay. We'll make the recommendations, but there'll be multiple options, I think.
Councilor Horn.
I'm for getting our roads fixed. I mean, it's probably one of the biggest things that we hear from everyone. But what I'm hearing here right now is that we don't have a good plan in place on how we want to do this financially. And Mr. Norris has already told us it could take $20 million to bring our roads up. What do we have, you go through South Main Street on up to North Main Street, and those roads are disasters. But yet we're trying to bring downtown to a better looking area for our people, citizens. We have Garnick that you're talking about. The road has very seldom ever been repaired over there. And those are the places where people coming into the community, they're going to look at them and they're going to go the other way. because I don't want to go through the same potholes that have been there for 30 years. And I can say that for 30 years, because I left 30 years ago, and I'm still driving over the same potholes down Rochester Hill 30 years later. So what we need to do is take time. This thing's been brought out today. Most of us didn't even know it was going to be on, he talked about tonight. And go back and let the experts do their job and then come forward with a plan to the council on how we're going to do it all, not just little pieces, because we're never going to get done anything if we don't have a plan. We don't have a way of looking at this. These folks can't go back to their offices and think about how we're going to spend $3 million or $20 million overnight. We want to do it properly. It's just like, let me give you this one last example. When we did the circle, I think that's a great circle myself personally. But we should have also at the same time made a plan to completely pave from the circle to the bridge. That's when you do your planning. Instead, we leave the area from the circle to the bridge, and then we got all kinds of bumps and disasters there. So what I'm trying to say is, let's get together and make a plan. We'll let our professional staff do their job and bring it to us, and we'll go from there. I don't think we need to do this tonight or anytime soon.
Councilor Sullivan, do you have your hand up?
Yeah, well, I was gonna, if we're done with the discussion, I was gonna
If we're done with the discussion,
amend the
I'll
motion.
call the question.
I have another point, Your Honor.
Councilor
Just
Hammond, then
to clarify, our next Public Works meeting is June 19th. And one thing I wanted to mention was that we would not be looking at any roads like the Gap, probably, that are scheduled for maybe major reconstruction down the road for water, sewer, or anything like that. You wouldn't be touching those roads now. It wouldn't make sense to reconstruct them and then go back and tear them up a couple of years down the road for whatever utility work needs to be done, so.
Councilor Herman.
Does having it for the next Public Works meeting give us time to get it into this year's budget?
No. I don't
Can
believe
we
so.
move Public Works to a special Public Works meeting ahead of time so it does fit in the budget?
The problem is we need to analyze, the motion is we need to analyze it, so that's what we're discussing right now. Councilor Walker and Councilor Carolian.
We can make this real simple. It can be simple. You pass the $3 million bond now, and I wasn't saying we cut a bond on June 15th. We can cut a bond whenever we come up with the plan. So we wait until after the Public Works Committee meeting so we can know what roads we're doing, how much bonding we got. If we have to if it happens within the next week before we pass the budget, we can increase that bond. This is real simple. We don't have to refer it to a committee and wait for it to come back. We can do it now, work on Public Works, get your list together, how much we have. And last I checked, spring of '26 is still within the 18 months of this season.
Director Norris.
I would just say that the next Public Works Committee is where the discussion starts. I don't know exactly what you're thinking. I can make assumptions, I can bring certain scenarios, but that's where the discussion starts. I don't think we walk out of there with a plan necessarily.
Okay. Councilor Carolian.
Thank you, Your Honor. Last comment. I just want to reiterate, I don't disagree with what's being said. I believe you plan how you fail or succeed, but I also believe that this is a small amount of money compared to the 20 million Director Norris is saying that I don't think there's an expectation that all our roads are going to get fixed with one effort. I think this is an elephant that needs to be eaten one bite at a time. I think this is a good first step, and I know that I'm certain that there are the Public Works Department is meticulously tracking, according to their index, what roads need repair, and that there are pre-existing plans on how to do those repairs. So I'm not certain that amount ratio, a small amount in comparison, would need that much, I guess, planning. The plan is fix the roads that we can, that are the worst. And there are protocols and directives in place to do that already. So again, I'm in support of this. I think it's a small measure that we can take to help our taxpayers who drive the most miserablest of the roads. And I think that we should support it.
All right, I'll call a question after this.
Director Sullivan can correct me if I'm wrong, but the capital improvements that are funded by bonding aren't necessarily tied into the city's fiscal year. You can have an appropriation outside of the city's fiscal year for a capital project. The only thing that's tied into the city's fiscal year is your tax rate. You know, that's why the general fund has to be approved at a certain time. And because the general fund and the capital funds do overlap, that's why they're done at the same time. But a governing body can pass a bonded project any time during the year. So with that clarification.
We'll turn over to Director Sullivan. I think they were answering your question,
My
Councilor
last
Herman.
comment, Councilor Fitzpatrick's absolutely correct. What I'm suggesting is we might be able to do more. I'd like to be able to come back and figure out a way to do 5 or 6 million. If you commit to the 3 million, that's fine. Knowing it won't be on the cycle to February or the next spring cycle of 2026, we would issue that bond. I can issue bonds with the cycle that I'm doing twice a year. June, we already missed the June. I can issue another bond in January, so I could target it for January of 2026 bond issue. But I'd like to have one number in order to do that, and then that debt service would begin the following year. You pay a half year's interest, and then you pay the full principal and interest in the following year. It's that next following year that's the concern, to be able to have time to work out how we're going to accommodate this bond issue and the debt service in the tax cap, and are we still going to want to add more cash? So because we'll be paying the debt service, but during that span, while we're paying that, are we still going to be looking for another $1 million or $1.5 million cash annually? That's the break here. That's where this breaks, and that's the thing we need to figure out. And I can't do it in 48 hours. I need more time to figure that out.
Thank you. All right, we'll call the question is the amend a motion that this gets referred, the paving gets referred to Public Works.
Excuse me, point of order?
Yes.
So if I wanted to put the funding in place now so it doesn't get pushed off for another year, and I want to start this in '26, or even if it pushes out later in the year, then I would say no to the referral so we can get this ball rolling, because we're going to Public Works with this anyways. Nothing's going to happen until at least January. And I think this is just, that's my point of order. Then I would vote no to the referral.
We'll do a roll call vote.
Please do.
Counselor Richardson.
No.
Counselor Walker.
No.
Counselor Credo.
No.
Counselor DeJevois.
Yes.
Counselor Sullivan.
No.
Counselor Fitzpatrick.
Yes.
Counselor Horn.
No.
Counselor Turner.
No.
Counselor Herman.
Yes.
Counselor Carolian.
No.
Counselor Fontenot.
No.
Counselor Hammond.
Yes.
Mayor Callahan.
Yes.
7 to 5, noes carry.
Should be
7 to
Or
5.
8 to 5, sorry.
8-5,
8-5.
okay. So now the motion, we go back to the original motion of, make sure I got it right, $3 million bond for paving that we're going to pass right now.
Roll
Roll call vote.
Counselor Fontenot.
Yes.
Counselor Richardson.
Yes.
Counselor Credo.
Yes.
Counselor Turner.
Yes.
Counselor Herman.
No.
Counselor Carolian.
Yes.
Counselor Sullivan.
Yes.
Counselor Dujafroy.
No.
Counselor Fitzpatrick.
Yes.
Counselor Hammond.
Yes.
Counselor Horn.
Yes.
Counselor Walker.
Yes.
And Mayor Callahan.
No, I'd like to see if we could make it even higher than that with more analysis.
10-3, passes carry.
All right.
Something we can work on.
Back, so I have a school department, and it's the sports complex. It's on page 89, CIP book. It's bonding for the $3 million. And I asked that the school CIP project for the sports improvement complex is $3 million in bonding, changed to $3 million Jewel settlement funds. The funds at the source will be $2,092,405 from the school Jewel proceeds and $907,595 from the city Jewel proceeds. And I'll just speak briefly on that before it's seconded. That $3 million over the 20-year bond is $5 million. That's $250,000 a year. So they have the Jewel funds available. The school department is willing to use that remaining Jewel money for this. The city has that money they can contribute to the Jewel fund. So it'll be a cash project, and it frees up $5 million for the taxpayers over the 20 years. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Council Sullivan.
I just, thank you very much, Your Honor. This is just for my clarification. So it sounds like a line item change. We can do that to the capital
Yeah,
projects in
CIP.
the school budget?
Yeah, we can do that in the CIP. Any other questions?
That was my question, if we could do that, line item on the school budget.
Yes, we can. Council, Director Sullivan.
Our understanding, and the city attorney isn't here, but our understanding is in the capital improvements permit, each appropriation is a standalone, each project is a standalone appropriation. So you can change funding and you can do this contemplated action. Where the operating, you only have bottom line of the total operating. But because each capital project is its own individual appropriation, particularly when you're changing from bond to another funding source, we believe that's permissible to do.
Thank you.
And I think that the school board supported it as well, so I'm not sure, I don't have that final confirmation.
We have the superintendent here and finance director for the school. You want to comment on that?
Can you just repeat it?
The transferring the Jewel money, you have $2,092,405 left of Jewel money.
May I?
Yes.
Yes, that is correct. I just want to make sure that 380,000 of that will not be received until December of 2025. So as long as there's no issues with making payments while we're doing the work in the fall, we won't receive that 380 until December.
Thank you. City manager.
Yeah, thank you, Your Honor. Just for clarification, I believe the school board has to officially vote on approving utilizing Jewel funds for this purpose. I'm not sure if that's occurred or not, but that would be, no, I'm saying no, that hasn't. So that would probably be, you can still make the motion on this end, but the actual appropriation of the Jewel funds for that purpose would have to be ultimately approved by them and will be contingent upon that.
Okay, thank you. Council Sullivan.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. So just to be clear, sorry, I'm trying to find it in the book. So this is unallocated funds in their budget that are now being put towards the CIP part.
Yeah, these are
to save from bonding and paying interest.
Yeah, this is the nicotine lawsuit the state was involved in. So it's, yes, not federal funds, it's not state funds.
It's not taking away from something that's currently
No.
budgeted, is what I'm asking.
No.
Is that correct?
Any more discussion? Councilor DeJavois.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify the city manager's comment. If we pass this and it's contingent on the school board approving, what's the consequence of them not approving?
Dr. Sullivan can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the project probably couldn't move forward unless they asked for a different funding source. Is that correct?
Well, they're presenting $3 million of bond. I guess if they weren't open to transferring the Jewel funds as a funding source, this council could take action to not approve the project or push the project out a year. You know, I don't think that's going to happen. I think this is a good use of the funds, and hopefully the school board will see it. But
Yeah, I think the school, you can come up, yeah, you can just stand up there, that's fine.
I did have one comment that it is not taking anything away from the operating budget. However, there have been positions that were approved by the committees and the school board to be used with Jewel funds. So in essence, what we're not taking away anything budgeted, but we are taking away a commitment that the school board and the committees have approved and gone through the process to approve.
I'm sorry, you just state your name for the record, I'm sorry.
Adriana Combs, Director of Finance,
Thank you.
School District.
Counselor Sullivan.
Thank you. I guess while you're still up there, so I think when I was going through this and some history of it, I think originally the sports complex, remodel, whatever you want to call it, was like, I think it was initially over like 5 years, and then it was changed to be 2 years.
Correct.
So I'm wondering, what is the need for like, why was that?
Originally, we had asked for a plan for $1 million over 5 years, and then at the direction of the school board, we wanted to see what could be done at the same time because of pulling up the field and resodding and regrading the track, and there are certain things that should be done in combination and in conjunction with each other. So we went back actually 3 times to the engineers to come up with various different plans and scenarios. And this is ultimately the plan, the $3 million and the $1.5 million that was agreed upon.
Can I do a follow-up real quick?
Yes.
So, thank you for that explanation. So the previously deducted 400,000.
Correct.
And this amount, 295,000, I think. Could that just be moved on from this to a future year? Could you redo your CIP and have it take 3 years?
I'm sorry, you're saying to remove some of the Phase 1 project and move it to a subsequent year?
Like 3 years, yeah. Would that, could you divert, so the 400, could it all come out of this and it takes 3 years instead
I'm
of 2?
sorry, I don't understand how the 400, what the
I'm asking,
400,000.
can you use that or no?
Oh, the 400,000 that we're removing from there? If it's put back into the budget, then I can use the
No, I'm
400,000.
asking if you could shift stuff to this. Are they separate items that one can't go from the other? So for example, let's say you did move $1 million of the sports complex work to the third year. So you have 1 year, 3.5, 1.5. And then, so if you move to the third, could the fund saved from that amount then replace the 400 that was previously removed, or are those 2 separate items?
I would imagine that they're 2 separate items, because one is a bond and one is
Oh, the bond's
operating.
bonded, okay.
Correct.
I'm going to ask Director Sullivan,
I
I
mean,
think you're talking about
bond,
cash
jewel,
and...
we
I got it.
use
That's
bond
bonded.
and
Yeah, that's all bonded.
settlement
I
versus
think all in
bond is
question
different.
at
yeah.
all.
No, I got it, the Jewel, because the
Right.
Jewel money, the
Jewel's in a
295 is not bonded though.
It's sitting, correct.
Yeah.
The Jewel is its separate fund altogether.
Correct.
And it's a settlement fund. It
yeah.
doesn't impact the tax cap, it doesn't impact the bond.
Correct.
What you'd be doing is you'd be using the funds to reduce the amount of bond outlay, if that's the question. I don't know where 400,000 comes
That's what we removed previously from their budget, so.
That is the FY '26 operating budget.
Operating,
You
yeah,
use
Right, which is
400,000
different.
from the operating budget, which lowers the amount to be raised by taxes and lowers the tax cap,
Yeah.
creates
Okay.
tax cap surplus.
Squared away?
So in regards to your
Yeah, what's
answer, could we
confusing me was-
postpone and do a 3-year? That is something that the Director of Operations would have to go back to the engineers again. We did have certain things that were identified in Phase 1, and I can read them to you if
No,
you're
I guess the question was, we took 400 out.
No, yeah.
The 295, though, is not bonded.
Correct, the
That
209
could go to this. No, that's what I'm asking. Could the 295 replace 295 of the 4?
$2,095,095. I don't know where the 295 is.
Fuel money.
$2,095,095.
Is that what we're doing?
It's 2 million, yeah.
$2,092,092. Yes.
Could you use that to replace the 400 part of it?
Everything that is the Jewel funds are used for have to go through the Jewel attorneys. So depending on what I removed from the budget, we may be able to use $400,000 from the Jewel settlement, but it has to be it's really more to get children off the streets, get them more involved in and involved in the school district, in the school, in the city, you know, rather than being, you know, in the store buying vapes and stuff.
Yeah,
Just
Director.
clarify one thing. What you have to realize is you took a $400,000 reduction out of their general FY26 operating budget. They have to find it. You can't just supplant like that without going by the rules of what the jewel funds were intended for and getting it cleared. So they're not just transferable, oh, I got cut on my O&M here, I'm just going to transfer it in.
If it was jewel fund eligible, would it be?
Well, they would have to define what positions or what
Exactly, so
activity
they
they were
might
gonna-
be able to
they-
do it.
they were going to cut.
So they might be able to do it. I'm trying to figure out if this money that we're talking about, the jewel fund, is basically so unusable that it has to be used for specific things that you might as well just keep from bonding.
It does have to be used for specific things, which is against, you know, what most of the counselors are saying. It was being used to put personnel and staffing in the schools to do an avoidance.
Any comments? We'll do a roll call vote. The vote is to change the $3 million bonding, to take that out, and it's going to be, and the recommendation is, with school board approval, is that they will use the remaining Drew money of $2,092,405, and the city will contribute the $907,595, which will give them the $3 million. Roll call vote.
Counselor Horn?
Yes.
Counselor Credo?
Yes.
Counselor Fitzpatrick?
Yes.
Counselor Richardson?
Yes.
Counselor Walker?
Yes.
Counselor Dujafoi?
Yes.
Counselor Carolian?
Yes.
Counselor Fontenot?
Yes.
Counselor Sullivan?
Yes.
Counselor Hammond?
Yes.
Counselor Turner? Yes. Counselor Herman?
Yes.
And Mayor Callahan?
Yes. Motion passes. And here are all my forms, my presentations.
Thank you.
Any school or city adjustments? Okay, hearing none, department reports. Any questions, comments on department reports?
Your Honor, sorry,
Yes.
we just had one item we wanted to just point out, make sure everyone was on the same page. In the O&M budget, it's become practice to incorporate into the salary and benefits projection the non-union COLA. So as a reminder, the non-union COLA is plugged into this budget and is approved in effect by adopting the budget. It's 3% this year, which is in alignment with our contracted positions. And after budget adoption, then the non-union classification schedule and merit track would be updated accordingly and brought to your attention. And that's
Thank
all we
you.
had, just
Any
business item,
questions? Yes.
administrative item.
You have a budget adjustment?
No.
Department, okay.
Afterwards, though, before the school department leaves, I'd like to make a comment.
We've moved past the budget. If it's a budget adjustment, go ahead right now before we get in, before
I'm
we
not-
join the meeting. Go ahead, say
It has
something.
nothing to do with the budget.
You want to?
I can. I'll-
Go ahead.
Well, what I want to say is probably out of order, and you can all tell me I'm out of order. But I just want people to leave here with some positives. And I think we have a lot of positives in our city, and I'll get to that at some other point. But for the school board and for the schools here in Spalding, you know, you hear a lot of negative things, but I had the fortunate ability to travel the entire United States and other places, and we have a lot of young men and women and older ones all over the country, all over the state, that have some very high-end jobs. And they got these through Spalding. And many of our teachers have done a tremendous job for our students over the years. I've been to all of the military academies, and we've had a lot of young men and women who have gone through the military academies. So you look back on some of the negatives, but let's look at some of the positives that we have. My boys graduated from Spalding, and I know when I walked in this room tonight, I had a young man look up at me and say, "Hey, Coach, how's things going?" And he came up here on the stage this morning and presented to our mayor and others about the Memorial Day Parade. And those are the people who graduated from Spalding and went all through our school systems here. We've had some of the finest school teachers that you could ever have, and we should be proud of what we're saying and not throwing negatives at our employees and our schools, because we have a tremendous amount of people doing it. In my family, my son, I have a son who served many years in the Navy, retired, and he's in the school teacher. I have granddaughters that are school teachers and other people because, and in their case, because of the teachers that we have here in Rochester over the years. That's all I
Thank
want to
you.
say. I just think we need to leave it with a positive, man. Thank you very much.
It's all good. So I just want to get a feel for the council. Are there any more cuts you think that we need to come back here on May 27th? Or if not, then be prepared to pass the budget on June 2nd during our regular meeting. Okay, there's no non-public. Without any objection, I adjourn the meeting. Have a good night.